There are some people who will make the decision to achieve financial independence and they'll make small changes to make that happen. And then there are others who will move halfway across the globe to achieve FI. And that's what I did, so let's talk about it. All right, welcome back to The Journey of Finance, helping you on your journey to financial independence. If you're new around here, my name is Cedric and I'm a creative entrepreneur, filmmaker, and commercial model, and I love all things personal finance. And that's what we talk about on this channel. We really talk about how to achieve financial independence, and I'm also sharing my journey as well. So if that is something that you're into, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell. And do me a big favor, if by the end of this video you find any value whatsoever, hit that like button, and if you're a little adventurous, go ahead and hit it right now. So today I wanted to get a little personal with my own story in terms of my journey to financial independence. I'm taking a path that's a little unconventional, but it's something that is open to a lot of people if they're open to a little creativity with their journey. Now, about 3.5 years ago, I made the decision to leave everything that I knew behind and move halfway across the world to South Korea. I was living in New Jersey at the time and I had a steady job. As a matter of fact, I was working in the financial services industry in New York City, and I was also building a real estate investment business on the side. So I guess in a way, from the outside looking in, I was starting to find success in the things that I was doing. I was really starting to build my own business and get a little bit of a reputation in Northern New Jersey in the real estate investment world, but there was something that was missing. I just sort of felt like that the path I was on, really just trying to build my name and reputation and my career on real estate investing, though it could have helped me obviously achieve financial independence, it would have done so in a way that probably would have left me unfulfilled, or would have left me wondering, what if I would have actually pursued the things that I really wanted to do and achieve FI that way? Maybe it would take a little bit longer. Maybe I wouldn't be able to build as much wealth, but at least I'll be happier in the process and more fulfilled. So this was sort of the inner dialogue that I was going through at the time. And on top of that, I was living in one of the highest cost of living areas in the US. I was living in Bergen County, New Jersey, where the property taxes are crazy. The real estate prices are super high, at least much higher than where I grew up, which was in North Carolina. Everything was just so expensive there. Now, don't get me wrong, I really did enjoy my 5 years in New Jersey, and really, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about business and putting myself out there and taking risks to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. At the time, I was single, no kids, no family, and I was also in my lower 30s. So I felt like the window of time for me to take such a drastic risk was short because I wanted to eventually settle down. I felt like I needed to do that at that point in time. So why South Korea? Now, there are many reasons why I decided on South Korea. I mean, for one, that's the birth country of my mom, and that's the culture that I grew up with in the States. I've always wanted to know what it was like to live in South Korea and to experience life there. Another reason is of the job opportunities there for foreigners. Now, South Korea doesn't have a ton of opportunities for foreigners to come in and to work, but there is one potential opportunity that is most common amongst foreigners, and that is teaching English. And that's either teaching in the public school system or the private school system. And that is probably one of the most common ways for non-Koreans to come on over to Korea and to have a job and to be able to live there. So for me, I thought maybe this would be a good way to get my foot in the door, because not only did I want to come and live in Korea, but I wanted to sort of have a fresh start. And I started realizing that I had a passion for filmmaking. I had a passion for telling stories. And I really wanted to not only develop that, but I also wanted to establish myself as a filmmaker. Also, the cost of living in South Korea versus at least where I was living in the United States was a lot lower. Everything from housing to public transportation to just your day-to-day living, the expenses are a lot lower compared to New Jersey. So what's my plan for FI living abroad? Well, like I mentioned, I wanted to establish my new career here. I was learning the ins and outs of filmmaking, and I started to just basically tell stories and started creating like short documentaries. That led me to going into client work, and that eventually evolved into me creating a media production business here along with my fiance, and that is what what I'm currently doing here now. The other part of my plan DeFi as it relates to moving abroad is for me to optimize my expenses. And what I mean by that is I want to take advantage of the low cost of living here. Now, the cool thing about South Korea, especially here in the capital city of Seoul, is the cost of living as compared to New Jersey, where I was living, is a lot lower, but the quality of life is still quite good for that low cost of living. So as I'm establishing my career here and working on increasing that income while I'm optimizing my expenses, I'll have more disposable income to be able to invest, which will help me to achieve my financial goals. So let's talk a little bit about how I was able to save money while living here abroad. So just to give you a little bit of context, I'm gonna break down general aspects about the cost of living here and sort of compare it to where I was living in northern New Jersey. And that way you'll have a better idea of, I guess, the disparity of how my quality of life has more or less stayed the same or even increased while I was able to cut back on my expenses. Seoul is the capital city of South Korea with about 10 million residents, and it is a busy, bustling city. And the cost of living is the highest here in this city compared to anywhere else in Korea. Now, I remember prior to me moving to Korea, I would do my research and I would oftentimes see people online talk about how expensive it was to live here in Seoul. But I remember when I first moved here and I started to get a feel for how it was to live here and how much everything cost, I kind of laughed at that because for me, it's still a lot cheaper than where I lived in New Jersey. So I'll give you a couple of examples for comparison's sake, and you'll be able to see how I was able to optimize my expenses. So as far as my job was concerned, my first year, I came here as an English teacher, teaching in elementary, middle, or even high school as an English teacher. Typically, you'll get paid a salary based on your experience and college degree, and that can range anywhere from about $1,800 US to right under $3,000. So if you have the most experience in the most amount of years, you'll get paid a little bit more on the higher end of that scale. But a major benefit to that is you actually have your housing covered. So with any teaching contract, they're going to cover an apartment for you. So you don't have to come out of pocket for housing. So that is the benefit to coming here and teaching English. Now, the salary may not sound like a lot to a lot of you that are listening, and you're probably trying to compare it to where you are in the States or wherever you're watching from. But here in Korea, that salary is decent to start out with. Considering that they cover your housing, you'll be able to stash away money and you can actually easily save depending on how you live. There's so many English teachers that come here fresh out of college, they have a lot of student debt, and one of their aims is while they're teaching English here, they're stashing away money or they are paying down their student debt a lot faster. So yeah, my first year was spent teaching, I had my housing covered, and also on the side I was building my media production business as well as working on my first YouTube channel, which I actually talk about Korean culture and my experience in Korea, and that's a YouTube channel that I still do. So after my first year, I ended up quitting my teaching job and I went into freelance filmmaking full-time, which meant that I needed to find my own place. I needed to actually pay for my own apartment, which means my expenses crept up my second year. I needed to make sure that I was able to increase my income to still take advantage of the low cost of living and to make sure my expenses were optimized. So my second and third years was really spent on building the business and increasing the income. And during the meantime, I was able to pick up other side hustles like commercial modeling. I was able to model for some of the big brands here in Korea, which is actually a pretty cool opportunity. So I still do that on the side as the opportunities come. And so those were ways that I was able to increase my income here while keeping my cost of living low. Let's talk health insurance. So my first year teaching, health insurance was provided by the school, and I was able to get coverage by paying a little bit out of pocket in my salary, and then my employer covered the rest. And let me tell you about Korea's medical system. It's phenomenal. I mean, the service you get here is great. The doctors are top notch here. Insurance is actually quite inexpensive comparatively to the United States. And so my first year had medical insurance covered, but then my second and third year, I actually had to enroll in the Korean National Health Insurance Program. So health insurance is required for all residents here, and I'm coming out of pocket about $115 a month. As you can see, the health insurance is quite inexpensive, and I actually opted to get supplemental health insurance as well. That gives me a little bit more coverage just in case, and that was a personal choice of mine just to have that extra coverage just in case something happened, and that ended up being an extra $100 as well. Now let's talk about housing. Like I said, my first year here, I didn't have to pay for my apartment because it was provided provided by the school. My second year, I ended up moving into another apartment in Seoul, and this was a one-room studio apartment, and it had great views. It was in a great location, and I was paying about $850 a month for that. The utilities, in addition, would have been anywhere from $150 to $200 a month. The studio apartment was very small. As you can see, it was about 355 square feet, and that's just how apartments are here in Seoul. It's a very condensed city. There's a lot of people in a small area, and so most of the apartments and housing is generally quite small compared to the United States. So the next apartment is the apartment that you see right here. This is another apartment here in Seoul, and this is actually a brand new building, and we're paying about $1,400 a month, and utilities run anywhere from $150 to $200 a month. This is by far my favorite place that I've ever lived in here in Korea. I really wanted to find a place where I could not only feel like it's home, but I could also do my filming and my working in. So this apartment really serves as our living quarters, but we also do a lot of work here, including filming. So I think for us, it's worth the price tag, and our work pays for itself. Just to give you an idea, one of the places that I was living in New Jersey was actually a little bit bigger than this, but it was a basement apartment, and I had one bedroom, and I was paying about $1,500 a month. Oh, another thing that I almost forgot to mention is this particular apartment sort of has a co-working theme to it. There's a whole floor dedicated to being a co-working space, and so we're able to utilize that floor as our office. We're able to go down there, do some work, study, read, chill out, and they offer free coffee. So rather than me buying coffee every day or every other day like I used to, I'm able to get free coffee here and utilize the amenities for free. By the way, I'll be giving an apartment tour for this space, so be on the lookout. Let's talk about food. Now, for the most part, I eat in, and most of my meals are home-cooked meals. We actually go to a grocery store here that's a big chain. It's right near our house, and for the most part, I would say the prices are very comparable for most things in the States, with the exception of produce and fruit. But if you're able to do the planning and you plan your meals in advance, you're able to actually eat for very cheap when you go grocery shopping. Now, what I really love about Korea is when you want to go out and you want to eat, you want to get a decent meal, you don't have to spend $15 or $20. You can get a really hearty meal anywhere between $8 to $10. And if you want to go a little bit fancier, of course, you could pay a little bit more. But the one thing that I really love about Korea is whenever you go out to a restaurant, any restaurant, you don't have to tip. So tipping is not part of the culture here. As a matter of fact, it's frowned upon if you ever try to tip or leave a tip. But generally speaking, I eat at home, I save more money by eating at home, and overall it's healthier. Public transportation. So one thing about living in Seoul is I don't need a car whatsoever. The public transportation here is phenomenal. We have the metro, we have city buses, and we also have the KTX, which is the high-speed train. So you can travel from one part of the country to the opposite part in a matter of 3 hours. So whenever I need to get around in Seoul, I usually take the subway or the bus. Now the subway and the bus fare are the same, and it costs about $1.10 per trip, which is a big difference from when I lived in New Jersey and I would have to commute into New York City. I remember at the time, and this was years ago, it was about $2.75 per trip whenever I wanted to use the subway. So it's a lot cheaper here in Seoul. So I'm able to save a lot of money by not needing a car here. So I don't have to worry about buying a car or making car payments. I don't have to worry about auto insurance, gas, maintenance, or any of that. So I'm able to save upwards of hundreds of dollars compared to when I was in the States just by using the public transportation here. And just to give you an idea, especially in recent times, I haven't been going out too much. I've been doing most of my work at home. I usually spend anywhere from $30 to $40 a month on public transportation. So generally speaking, that is the cost of living that I'm experiencing here compared to northern New Jersey in the metro New York City area. So as you can see, I'm able to keep my expenses quite low here by living in a place that serves as my working space and also gives me free coffee every day. And I'm also able to use the public transportation, buy groceries, and cook at home. And it's been great. So let's talk about how this helps me to achieve FI. So every month I'll calculate what my expenses are, and I'll set aside money for that and make sure those expenses are covered. And then I just take the rest and I invest it. I usually send it to my brokerage account. I'll invest in my index funds and Roth IRA, and I'll also send a little bit to my crypto account, and I dollar cost average into that. I do want to mention that I don't invest in the stocks here in Korea. All of my attention and focus is going towards my US brokerage account. As I mentioned in my previous videos, I am looking into getting into real estate, and I want real estate investing to be a bigger part of my portfolio once I get into it. But as of right now, I'm not ready to get into that. And really a big part of that is because I am here abroad. And so it would be a lot more difficult to start from abroad, though possible. That is pretty much how moving here abroad is helping me to achieve financial independence. If any of you are thinking about moving abroad and you're thinking about how you can achieve financial independence and how moving abroad can be a part of your plan, you can definitely do your research and find a place that might be suitable for you. That's it. That's how me moving to abroad is helping me achieve financial independence. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you found some value in it. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know how the cost of living in your area compares to what I explained in this video here in Korea. Is there a big difference? Is it more expensive here or is it more expensive there? I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, you know what to do. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell. I upload videos on personal finance every week, and I hope you level up to achieve financial independence. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.